What's going on, guys? This is Chandler Smith, and one of the biggest questions that I get asked is, Chandler, should I invest in real estate in my home market, or should I invest out of state? And so in this video, we're gonna talk about the pros and cons of both and help you decide where you should start investing in real estate. So with all of that being said, let's jump into it. All right, guys, if you're new to the channel, I've been investing in real estate for the last 9+ years. I currently own over $25 million of real estate, and that's made up of 162 units of residential real estate. That's duplexes, fourplexes, and then bigger apartment complexes. And then I also own 160 storage units. Now, the only reason that I share this with you is I personally have struggled with the decision of investing out of state or investing in the market that I'm in. And I feel like I've come up with a pretty good, way to determine which one you should do, what's gonna be best for your situation. The only thing that I ask you to do is remember to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell, and so that we can catch you in the future videos. And with all of that said, we're just gonna jump into it. All right, guys, the first thing I wanna share with you is an example. And this is gonna serve you well if you think about this example in a lot of the decisions you make, but especially when it comes to what rental property you should buy and where you should buy it. The example goes like this. You've got two cars and they're both under a sheet. Now, this one right here, it gets 45 miles to the gallon. This one, it only gets 12. Now, which one do you want? You've got both of these options. I'm gonna raise the sheet as soon as you tell me which one, and I'm gonna give it to you for free. Well, the majority of people that I ask this question will say the 45 miles to the gallon. Now, maybe it's because I hang out with a lot of college kids that are sales reps in my sales force, and the first thing they think of is gas mileage and how important that is. Or maybe it's just because at heart, all of us want to get good gas mileage. We want to save money, whatever it is. The problem is you've only been given one statistic to make this decision. So when I pull back the sheet, over here, you've got this car that gets 45 miles to the gallon, but it's a jimmy-rigged Toyota Corolla that is just about to give out because it's got 200,000 miles on it. And they did all kinds of crazy stuff to make it so it got good gas mileage, but the engine's shot, the tires are shot, and it's worth maybe $2,000. Over here, we pull back the sheet, and you've also got a jimmy-rigged car, but this is a Lamborghini Aventador. This car is worth a lot of money. It's got a custom exhaust on top of being the top-end Aventador, and you just turned it down because you were focused on gas mileage. Now, a lot of times when people are trying to determine how to make a decision, they're working with limited information. And a lot of times that's because it's self-inflicted. A lot of times it's because they're focused on one thing. But the point of this is everyone's situation is different, for one. But two, just because you hear in one area cash flow is incredible, or in another area appreciation is incredible, or you can find a super cheap deal, if you focus on one criteria to make your decisions, you're going to come to find that a lot of times you're going to get burned. For you to say that, hey, both cars behind the sheet are probably equal before seeing the cars, that's also a foolish thing to do. And a lot of times people say, oh, like, it doesn't matter, any market is a good market. That's just not true either. We can prove that cash flow, appreciation, all of these things are better in some markets than others. There are markets that you should most definitely not invest in because, odds are you've got a lot higher risk in that area. However, there are also certain things you can do that even in a bad market, it can be a good market depending on your situation and how you're leveraging that situation. So, biggest thing you should get out of this example, don't jump to conclusions, and also be willing to look at your whole situation and all of the situations around you before you jump to a conclusion because of what someone said. So anytime you come to my channel, if I say, hey, you've got to do this, this is the only way to do it, a red flag should go up regardless of who you are. Now, it doesn't mean I'm wrong, but you should not jump into one person's opinion because you're different than that one person. Your values are different, your financial situation is different, your credit score is different, your skill set is different. And that's why going into the decision of should I invest in my market or someone else's market, you need to look at the big picture. And in this video, I'm gonna help you look at the big picture so that you can personally decide what's gonna be best for you. All right, now that we've got that covered, first off, we're gonna start with the pros of investing in your own market. First, big pro, you're there where you can consistently check up on the property. You can drive by, you also know the area, you know if a major business just went out of business and maybe property values are gonna be affected, you know if a major business is coming in. All of these things, you can do your research and you can do what's required to put yourself in a place where you have these same pros in another market. But for me, I was raised in a market, I felt very comfortable in it. It eliminated a lot of research for me to say, hey, I already know this area, I'm comfortable with it, these are the reasons why, and I can pop in on the property anytime. I have access to get to it, it's very easy to check up on my property manager. And so those are all big advantages. The other big advantage is I've got lots of connections in my area. So other real estate investors, realtors, wholesalers, I've kind of gained these relationships, not just because I'm a real estate investor, but because I was raised in this area. And so it was very easy to get the right connections. It's very easy to ask around and say, all right, what's the best credit union? Where can I get the best rates? What is going to be the best property management company? Who is the best subcontractor for this? That's really advantageous. I have so many connections that have already been built that, again, it's going to save me research and time in building new relationship or building a new team or building new systems in a different area. So again, these are major pros, but what you'll come to find is all of the pros of your market are things that can be duplicated. It's just going to be a little more difficult to duplicate some of these things, or it's going to take more time or more money doing them out of state, where if you've got all of the connections and your market meets the criteria where it makes sense, then it probably makes sense to go in your market. However, the one time I would tell people to not look in their market is if they don't have these connections and their market is bad, or their market is so extremely bad that even having the connections doesn't make it worth it because they could go get new connections and build a new team somewhere else. A lot of times the go-to market to pick on is the majority of the markets in California because they're so saturated. Prices have gone up so fast. People are willing to pay hardly anything to where they're not cash flowing well. And overall, as a whole, that market just doesn't have good deals. But the other thing you've got to keep in mind is if you're a realtor that's built thousands of relationships in an area, you know you've got connections with all the wholesalers, all the realtors, and you can get the best deals in California. Well, hey, those connections offset it because obviously the market's so incredible, but also that means people are willing to buy your property for more when the time comes, and it has been trending where property values there are appreciating. So you might step back and say, well, hey, if I can get the best discount in my market, even though it's a competitive market that isn't great for cash flow, isn't great for appreciation, but I can make it great for those things, that is a great reason to continue investing in your market because those pros give you an advantage that you already have. So the deals could already be there, where going to another market, you might not have those things. Those are the major pros to investing where you're at, and you've got to look at your personal situation. I have a lot of people that'll come to me and they'll say, Chandler, I don't have enough money to get into my market in California and I don't really have a lot of connections, but you know, it's nice to be able to drive by the property, check in on the management team. And my response to that would be, well, hey, if you don't have all those other pros, but you like being able to drive by the property, being able to check up on it, doesn't cost a lot to get one connection of someone you could pay 20 bucks an hour to go and FaceTime and do a monthly walkthrough with you. You go and have them walk through their property, once a quarter. That's going to be plenty to be able to check up, or just drive by the property and make sure that you're checking in on management, or anytime management charges you for, exorbitant amounts on renovations or expenses, you say, hey, show me what you did. I've got a guy going by, he's in a FaceTime. That's a very easy audit to add in, and a lot of times you might not even need to add in an extra guy. If you really trust your management company, you can just have them FaceTime you, right? As long as you can see the address on the property and you know they're not doing something sketchy, have them go walk you through, have them show you what they changed, have them FaceTime you. That's a very easy fix. And so now transitioning into the pros of investing out of state, I see a lot of pros. Number one, and this is an older gentleman's phrase, I hope it's not too off base, but it was don't poop where you eat. And there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, this is my hometown. If things go wrong, if I have a bad eviction, if I have a messed up renovation, or my management company does something wrong, I do have a higher standard I'm held to because this is my community. And that can be intimidating sometimes because I have a reputation here. Not that I wouldn't hurt my reputation doing something wrong somewhere else, but it's just added pressure to do things right in your own market. Where in another market, when you've turned it over, you don't have responsibility. It's not necessarily your name behind that investment because you have turned it over to a management team and they do have full responsibility. Where when you're here, people are like, hey, Chandler, we know you have to drive by that property. It's on the main stretch of town. And we saw that, the yard work looks like trash. It's like, oh yeah, like that kind of stinks. Now, does this matter financially? Not really, but that's one negative I've found with investing in my own market. Some of the other negatives I've found is you're blind to what else is out there. Now, for me, first thing I did is I said, hey, I'm just gonna invest where I live. Now, I got lucky because I do believe I'm in a market with great cash flow, great appreciation, low crime, all the things I would look for in a dream market. And I think that's why lots of other people are coming and investing in my market now. But I also look in other markets, and after doing my research, there are markets that potentially have advantages when it comes to cash flow, when it comes to appreciation, when it comes to a lot of the things that I look for in a property, where if I could have my same team, my same deal flow in one of these other markets, it would make a ton of sense. And I think that's the big thing you need to take out of this video is if you don't have the pros of investing in your market, some other market does have all the pros you're looking for. And there is a difference between the cars under the sheet. You might be in a Corolla right now where you're living, where somewhere else you can have a Lamborghini. Now that doesn't mean with really creative deal finding that you can't overcome that and creative financing and those connections. There are good and bad markets, and so reflect on your market, do your research, look into the cash flow, look into the vacancy rates, look into the appreciation, look into what's keeping people there, what's drawing people there, look into the trends, and get to the point where whatever market you're investing in, you are comfortable that you can get your desired return. And if you're looking and saying, well, it's easier to invest in my own market, but I know 100%, even with the connections I have here, I could be making a lot more money in a different market. Don't be scared of putting the right systems and the right checks and balances in place. As overwhelming as it sounds to go find a new loan officer and to go find a new property inspector and a new management company and make sure that they are using good subs, make sure that that area has good vacancy and, well, not bad vacancy and good cash flow and appreciation, all the things you're looking for, that will take time, it will take research, it will be a little overwhelming. But for me, one reason I'm kind of going out of my market is deal flow has been a little harder in just my area. And having multiple places that you have these connections will put you in a place where you can scale more quickly and you're gonna have more opportunities at finding good deals. The only thing I would warn you of is a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. And if you're in a place where it's like, hey, someone told me this is a good market and this is a good deal, so I'm gonna send it, it's probably not. Now, you might get lucky, but you need to have your own research, your own set of criteria, your own checks and balances, your own systems, and make sure that they are all in place before you ever go invest out of state. Because when you're investing in an area that you don't know with people that you don't know, to assume that there's not a risk that you might pull back the sheet and have a jimmy-rigged trash Toyota Corolla when you thought you were buying a Lamborghini, it would be foolish, because the reality is that could happen. There are bad people, there are bad businesses, there are bad deals, and so make sure that you do your due diligence. I'm sure a lot of you are saying, well, Chandler, what would you be looking for? I'm gonna give you a very brief list that with each topic, you should go into the subtopics, but it should give you a pretty good idea of what you're looking for. I want to go to a place where I know it's a B+ area, especially if I'm investing out of state. You want to stay away from the trash where you're going to have high vacancy, you're going to have high evictions, you're going to have high expenses. It's not something I would want to deal with in a different market, because when going to a different market with a management company, you're going to need more checks and balances. And if you're constantly dealing with expenses, constantly dealing with evictions, there's just a lot of issues that can arise there. So make sure you're not going to deal with eviction, vacancy, expenses, investing out of state. At least that's what I would do. I would also make sure that they have a long track record of good appreciation, property values going up, and enough businesses to support it, where if businesses come and go, you're not going to be in a problematic area. Also, I would go to an area that benefits landlords. There are lots of areas out there that are definitely moving to not benefit landlords. I think there are lots of states that are going to do things that make business harder for landlords. It's going to make it harder to bump rents. It's going to make it harder to evict people. It's going to make it harder to get the advantages that other markets would provide for you as a landlord. And so make sure it is a landlord safe or landlord approved market. You're going to want to make sure that taxes aren't crazy or looking like they're going to be crazy. You're going to want to make sure that you're not dealing with a place that has crazy insurance expenses that you're not planning on. You're going to want to make sure you go into an area where you're not going to have to deal with your property constantly being torn down by tornadoes or storms or other things that are going to cause stress and additional work and dealing with insurance companies and all of that. You're going to want to go to a place that has your desired cash flow. For me, that's a minimum of a 12% cash on cash return on my investment in that property. And so these are a couple of the criteria that I would look at. You're going to want to do a deep dive on anything that could change that situation. You want to make sure your numbers are good. You want to make sure you understand rents in the area, because a lot of times people can say, this is the deal with these rents, and then you come to find that they'd manipulated that and there's no way it can pull those rents. This is one place I see so many people get burned because they're like, oh, the deal looks incredible at 1,200 rents. And it's like, yeah, but if this property will never pull over 600 per unit, you're going to be absolutely screwed. And that is kind of something that for some reason doesn't register with people, but what the market rent in the area is so important. Now, it doesn't mean you couldn't get lucky and fill it for higher, right? That can happen, but you've got to base your decision on market rent, because holy cow, you could have a property that's probably only worth $300,000, and if someone doubles the rents and says, hey, you can get this, well, now they're selling the property for $600,000 and you bought a property for $300,000 more than it's actually worth because they temporarily had a tenant that paid way more than they should. That's the interesting thing about this game that we play is, you know, property values, you can have people sell way under or way over what it is actually worth, and you need to do the research so that you're comfortable knowing exactly what it is worth. And so when you go to sit down with a management company in this market, I would do that before I would buy the property. I'd have the team in place. I'd know that you've got financing lined up. I'd know that you've got the management company, so you can call the management company. You can say, hey, show me comparables for this unit in this area. What are you getting in rents? And then when they show you the comparables, then go out on your own, find your own comparables, and if everything lines up, then you can say, hey, rents are good, this makes sense. Just make sure you're going over the top to do your due diligence, but don't be scared of investing out of state, because I promise you, they could be the same, but you could have a much better experience and get a much better return in the right area if you do things right, if you have the right systems, you do the right research, you get the right management company, and you have all of your checks and balances to check in on those systems in that management company. If you can do all of that, you're going to be absolutely set. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, and you want to learn more, you want to have a step-by-step process on exactly how to invest in real estate, what to look for, what to do, I created a course that helps you run through all of that, and there's a link down in the description. If you're not to that point yet, go check out all of my other videos. There's so much free content out there where the only reason you should buy the real estate investing course is if you're ready to dive in and you want it, you know, step by step by step by step. Otherwise, if you're trying to figure out if real estate's right for you, go look at my other videos, because my goal is to help you to build a huge passive income. And again, if you like the video, smash the like button. We'll look forward to seeing you in future videos. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.